the holiest site for Judaism in the entire world, he says that only Muslims have the right to go there.
That is probably the most politically incorrect statement I've ever made, and everybody can hate me for it, but I've been right.
This is the Israel Guys.
Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of fake news, you ought to connect to the true and authentic stories of Israel. We got a lot to come at you guys straight from the heartland. So much to talk about. It's Hanukkah, and we wish all of you a happy Hanukkah.
That's right.
Luke, lots to cover today.
That's right. Happy Hanukkah to everybody out there. If you're celebrating, if you're not celebrating, you should check it out because it's an amazing holiday.
That's right.
It's not only a Jewish thing, but it's also something that you see in the New Testament or Christian faith a little bit. So I think it's very, even if Christians don't celebrate it, if you're celebrating Christmas, Hanukkah is still something very significant. You should check it out. And by the way, it's 8 nights, and you eat fried potatoes, donuts.
I can't get better than
you
that.
Light candles. It's just like, there's not much, there's like nothing not to like about it.
And you can't separate the miracle of Israel from Hanukkah. It's all about the miracle.
Yes.
That's what we're going to be talking about.
We're going to talk about it more, but you guys need to subscribe. Hit subscribe. Make sure you leave comments, hit the notification bell, all that. Real quickly, if you have not downloaded the Israel Guys app yet, you need to do it. We actually went live last night on the app, lit the Hanukkah candles, had a Hanukkah live stream straight from the app, but it wasn't available here, and it won't be. You can catch the replay and make sure you don't miss out on any future live streams. If you go download the app, just search the Israel Guys on your app store, Android, Apple, whatever you're on. Download, sign up, completely free today. And by the way, we've already had so many people, hundreds and hundreds of people sign up in the last week, and we've had a lot of action going on. You guys have been posting. We've been posting. We're talking about the tree planting site that we're working on here in Israel, other projects, also all kind of news, videos. We've been having so much fun. It's been an awesome interactive platform. So go download the Israel Guys app today and get engaged.
Luke, we're talking about Hanukkah, but we've got modern day Israel now. We have the Temple Mount, and we're going to talk about Monsoor Boss and maybe correlations of today. This is just a little segment of it. But Luke, let's get down to the what's going on today on the Temple Mount.
You know, I think just about everything we're talking about today could be correlated to a modern day story of Hanukkah and the Maccabees.
Yeah.
Monsoor Boss, as you guys know, is the leader of the Ram party. He is in the coalition government of Israel's government right now. First time in Israel history that an Arab party has been part of the coalition. They're always part of the opposition. He's like, he tried to keep a moderate stance, but it seems like every week he comes out a little bit more with his true colors. It's come out that he has ties with Hamas. He failed to condemn the attack that left a Jewish man, Eli murdered in Jerusalem last week. And now he had an interview with the Kul Al Arab newspaper. And he said that Arab parties must make every effort to make sure that Netanyahu is not reelected to be prime minister. But here's the kicker. Why does he not want to see Bibi Netanyahu as prime minister again? Because he said, and this is a direct quote, "The Temple Mount belongs to Muslims only. We are working in the government to make a commitment not to invade the Al-Aqsa Mosque, not to perform religious worship on it by non-Muslims, as it is a Muslim-only right. I've dedicated my whole life to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and no one can criticize me on this issue." And I just want to explain what he means when he says, we want a commitment from the government not to invade the Al-Aqsa Mosque. When an Arab says that a Jew has invaded the Al-Aqsa Mosque, when an Arab says that Jews have stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque or the Temple Mount, that 100% means every single time that a non-Muslim or Jew has simply visited the Temple Mount. That's when they walk onto the Temple Mount and they do the normal tour escorted by Israeli police. That is their definition of invading and
Luke,
storming.
You know what? I'm really excited about this because you and I are actually invaders now, according to this definition.
We made it in the news as part of one of the Jewish groups that stormed the Temple Mount.
Stormed, yeah.
And we saw the rocks being thrown through the glass. It was crazy.
But we were the invaders.
No, not by us, yeah.
Yeah, right.
They were being thrown at us. He went on to say, quote, "Israel is a Jewish state, whether we like it or not." And obviously he doesn't like it.
He doesn't like that.
The question is, what is our status in the state? I consider myself a citizen with full citizenship in the state of Israel, and I want to exercise all my rights. No problem with that. He's a citizen. He's in the, he wants to exercise his full rights as a citizen. I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem with him saying that Jerusalem's capital The actual capital. I'm not just talking about it according to Judaism. Actual capital. And then let's go on a religious faith level. The holiest site for Judaism in the entire world. He says that only Muslims have the right to go there
and worship,
there.
Yeah.
He says no one else even has the right to go there. And here's the kicker. Muslims, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the Dome of the Rock, and the Dome of the Rock is not their holiest site.
No.
It is the third holiest site in Islam.
Yeah.
Mecca is the number one, Medina, and then Jerusalem. They call it Al-Quds, right? And we have a picture, okay? Where do Muslims face when they worship? Do they face toward the Al-Aqsa Mosque? Yeah. Do they face toward the Dome of the Rock?
Yeah.
Can we show the picture?
They face their holy site.
Away
Yeah.
from the Dome of the Rock. You can see you got thousands of Muslims right now facing the opposite direction of the Dome of the Rock. That's because they're facing towards Mecca. Do they actually care about the Dome of the Rock? No.
No, obviously not.
Do they care about Jews not having the right to walk on the Temple Mount, much less pray and worship? Absolutely. That's the only thing. Okay, so here's the thing. I want to say on a positive note, the Ye'areh organization, which monitors Jewish activity on the Temple Mount, recently put out statistics about Jewish visitors. And this is exciting because in the same time periods from previous years, there's been an increase this year between 50 and 80% of Jewish visitors.
Right.
In the last 3 months, 10,000 Jews have visited the Temple Mount. That's just since Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the Jewish New Year. You have 10,000 visitors. That's a huge increase from 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So you have that, which is amazing. So it's actually happening. And yes, Jews have a 100% right. And I'll even say this. They have more of a right than Muslims because Islam, it's the third holiest site. Okay, if they want to visit there, fine. But do they have more of a right than Jews? No, Jews have more of a right for them. It's their number one holiest site in their faith, right?
Well, what they don't know is they don't realize
not what happened.
History. And that's one thing we celebrate during Hanukkah is the history of the Jewish people. And the miracle of God bringing the Jewish people through all the just outrageous events throughout history. It sounds like Monsoor Boss and the Arab regime that stands against Israel should look back at history and just recognize that they will not be able to get rid of the Jewish people. And that's really the beauty of Hanukkah. It's it doesn't matter. The biggest empire of the time comes and tries to defeat Israel. They go in and they tear down, and the Temple Mount, it's always centered around the Temple Mount. It's a really bad place to pick up your cause if you're not Jewish. Can we just say that, Luke? It's a really bad place to put headquarters if you're not Jewish. It really ends bad.
Can we step on a few toes for a second?
Yeah, step on them, Luke.
We're going to talk about the story of Hanukkah. Let's talk about the modern day story of Hanukkah.
Well, do
you think there's an abomination? Maybe we won't say the abomination of desolation, but is there an abomination on the Temple Mount right now?
It's abominable, yeah, because it's
Was
a place
there an
that you worship.
abomination on the Temple Mount during the time of the Maccabees, during the story of Hanukkah?
Yeah, you better believe it, yeah.
Where are Muslims worshing when they bow down on their faces on the Temple Mount?
Well, their rear ends are facing the Temple Mount. That's the fact.
From the Temple Mount.
Yeah.
Are Muslims desecrating the Temple Mount intentionally?
For sure.
Are they destroying the evidence of Jewish presence there? Yes, we don't have time to get on that. We've done it before. It's absolutely happening. Last thing I'll leave, and we'll connect this to Hanukkah in a few minutes more, but it's interesting that Monsoor Boss feels less threatened by this government than he does by Netanyahu's government.
Fascinating.
Just something to think about the current government here. Let's talk about U.S. ambassador to the UN, Josh.
Yeah, so Linda Thomas-Greenfield, she's the U.S. ambassador, and we have the UN security meetings that happen to Israel and no other place in the world except for the UN security. They really want to focus on Israel's security and not Iran or not any other place in the world. Okay. At the meeting, the number one topic, obviously, is Israel, but you want to boil it down. We're talking about Hanukkah. If you want to ask me, the Zionist Christian that I am, and hopefully everybody listening is going to really love this too, because to me, the one that settles the land of Israel, that's the Maccabee. Is there anything wrong with a Jewish person coming back and settling the land of Israel? No, there can't be. A Jewish person coming back to the land of Israel and settling the land. Do you want to know the UN, it's most hated? Security Council meets monthly. About who? It's directed at the settlers.
Yeah.
No, it's not about directed against. It's directed against.
It's
boil it down, Luke.
Narrow
all the way down. No, they're not just about Israel. No, it's going to be boiled down all the way to the settler. Okay, and then they're going to create an unbelievable amount of propaganda and lies, and that's what we're going to talk about here. So here we have Linda at the Security Council telling people that Israel's settlement building in the West Bank, settlers building in the West Bank, but every time it goes down to here, has reached a critical juncture, and it is now undermining even the very viability of a negotiated two-state solution. Luke.
Ooh, good or bad? Good or bad?
Good, thank God.
Depends on if you're a supporter of Israel or not. If you're a supporter of Israel and you're pro two-state solution, we have an issue with you. I'm very sorry.
Yeah, and sorry, you're losing. Can we just rub it in for a little bit, Luke? Just crank it. Rub it in. You're losing. Anybody that thinks this two-state solution has happened, you are absolutely up in a pipe dream, and it's not happening. Not happening. But yet, it is inflicting pain on Israel.
Hey, guess what? A lot of the stories of the Maccabees happened in the settlements,
actually,
Judea and Samaria.
Actually, all I believe.
You know those elephants. You probably heard of. If you know the story of the Maccabees, just down the road from here. Can I read a quote from Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield?
Yeah.
UN ambassador or U.S. ambassador to the UN.
To the UN.
She said, quote, "I heard stories about Israeli settlers attacking Palestinians, ransacking homes, and destroying property in the West Bank. And this is an issue that I discussed extensively with Israeli counterparts."
Yeah, and they also talk about settler violence against Palestinians is an alarming high. Luke, can I just tell you my week? You know, even this show, we had to pause because I had to run out. I'm on a volunteer security team. We had to run out and check something because there was Arabs that were about to vandalize, okay? That literally happened right before we recorded. Yeah. Just the other day, I was going into town. You saw it last week. Rocks were thrown on the way there, and rocks were thrown on the way back. Does that ever end up on the UN Security Council's list of attacks against Jews? Absolutely not.
Well, we were just talking
Listen, it does not show up on the Security Council's list of attacks. It will not.
What we were
it never
talking
will.
about before the show is why is it that the world always seems to focus on the one instance of Jewish settlers attacking Palestinians, and when it's there's 100 instances for that one of the opposite. And many times when there's stories of Jewish settlers attacking Palestinians, it's not even the actual story. There's been multiple busts recently of actually being the opposite. And usually what happens is Palestinians attack settlers, and then settlers defend themselves, and then it goes up in the news as the settlers were attacking the Palestinians.
Can we just put this case in
point?
point?
Or when they talk about settlers, ramming or running over Palestinians, hey, we have a picture, right?
Yeah, right.
What's happening here?
Luke, let's just tell the story.
Palestinians they create a riot around a vehicle, surround them. They're rocked, and when we're talking about lethal attacks. Okay, we have a friend that had concrete blocks thrown to his windshield. He and his wife literally woke up in the hospital. They were knocked out and almost killed. Okay,
you don't realize that's happening on the thousands.
So when you have 100 or more Palestinians surrounding you, throwing rocks and concrete blocks through your windshield, what do?
You're trying to get out.
Step on the gas to get out of there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Luke, do you want to know what the headline is?
News?
Can you just guess the headline? Here's the headline: Israeli car hits Palestinian amid rock throwing. There is dozens of wild, going crazy Arabs throwing rocks at one Jewish car. I think there's 2 Jews in the car.
Yeah.
And this is the title you're going to put on it? That is as anti-Semitic as you could possibly get. You might as well be Hitler trying to bring propaganda to the world in the 1930s. That is crazy. But yet this is what the world's going to talk about.
And this is what the UN wants to talk about.
And this is what the UN is going to talk about.
Unfortunately, this is what our U.S. ambassador to the UN wants to talk about as well.
And Luke, it pales in comparison.
And
there's no comparison to those two. Jewish violence against Arab is basically non-existent. I live here. I've grown up here.
No.
Jewish violence against Arabs is a made-up thing. Okay, you might hear some crazy radical story that happens somewhere, and you can take it. But let me tell you, most of the time, it's flipped on its head. Like all the other media you hear, like the Arab leftists who they claim that the Jewish people beat up the Arab farmer. You want to know who the Arab farmer was? The Arab farmer was in Israeli jail for stabbing an Israeli soldier. Right. And then he comes after he gets out of jail and goes to attack the Jews inside of the settlement of Homesh. And what do the Jews do? The students, they try to defend themselves.
Yeah, because
and
they're
then
surrounded.
The students are called the attackers of a farmer. The guy was no farmer. He's a blatant terrorist, and he's attacking Jews, but yet the media reports the other way around. That's what is happening on the main stage. The world will continue to try to hit Israel from every angle, and this is what they're doing again. I'm seeing it constantly. Right now, the headlines are always settler, anti-settler. Do you know the settlers are Maccabeans? They're coming back to the land of their forefathers, and they're establishing this land, and you know what? They love These guys are godly people. They're not out killing Arabs. And only when they're attacked. These are people of like high moral standard. These are not just radicals that are killing people for their faith. No, that's not in Judaism.
Yeah.
You don't kill people in Judaism. That's just not what you do. Unless they're attacking you, you have a biblical right to defend yourself and your family.
Save your own life.
Is that clear enough, world?
Commandment.
I hope so.
Yes. So unfortunately, and let's give Mrs. Ambassador Thomas-Greenfield the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she doesn't know. But that's because when you Google things, we put out a show on the apartheid wall, so-called apartheid wall, on the channel just a couple days ago. Go watch it. It's the last video on the channel before this one. You have to watch it. Because when you Google that topic, everything in the search results comes up as anti-Israel or lies or propaganda or biased stuff. So that's why, there's two people. There's people that are ignorant.
Yeah.
And there's people that know the truth but choose to hide it or tell lies, okay? Yeah. And you have both happening. And that's why stuff like we're talking about is so important, and that's why you guys have to share it. And you have to get on our app because that's where the true and authentic stories are happening. Yeah. Josh, we have to talk about, we don't have too much time, but we have to talk about the U.S. now trying to force a U.S. consulate down the throat of Jerusalem.
You know, Luke, this is unbelievable to me because this is like against the law. This sounds like the Hanukkah story all over again, where they're trying to, force Jerusalem to do something that Jerusalem doesn't want to do.
I don't know if it's actually against the law, but it's like basically the U.S. actually admitted, senior State Department official actually admitted and said, no, we do have to get Israel's permission.
That's what I'm saying.
Basically, like they could do it if they want to, but it's totally against, they need Israel's permission to open this consulate. Okay, what happened? Before President Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem, they had a consulate in Jerusalem that served the Palestinians. There was one close to Independence Park that's close to Israel's Jerusalem's old city, not too far away. Mm-hmm. And then they had another office in East Jerusalem. Okay, and then you have what's now the embassy. Okay, so you had 3 locations. President Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem. He shut down the 2 other locations, and he said everybody will be served at the embassy. Kind of makes sense, right?
One state of Israel.
You have an embassy and we're talking about Jews and Palestinians and Americans because we're here and we have to go there for services too.
Right.
Now, under the Biden administration, the U.S. government wants to reopen the consulate for the Palestinians. Okay, just to be clear, you don't need an embassy that serves Jews and Palestinians plus a consulate in the same city, that country's capital, that only serves the Palestinians. If you want to have a consulate that serves the Palestinians, you can open one in Ramallah because that's their capital of the Palestinian Authority. Mm-hmm. But you don't need another one in Jerusalem. And
it's unheard of, Luke.
It's kind of spitting in the face of Israel.
Why would you open up another political entity for inside of a country that doesn't belong to that country? It's unheard of.
There's another layer of this story, though, because PA Prime Minister, and you found this, Mohammed Shia said, quote, "We want this consulate in Jerusalem to be the future U.S. embassy for the state of Palestine." People aren't going to read that.
They're not going to know what it's talking about, yeah.
If you did, would you know where this consulate actually is?
This consulate is the big kicker here. This consulate is in West Jerusalem. There's not a consulate in East Jerusalem. You mentioned an office in East Jerusalem. Yeah, they had some
offices there.
And he said this consulate will serve as the capital, right, of the Palestinian state, which would then be an embassy, right, for the U.S. This is in West Jerusalem. There is, what he's saying, let's boil it down real quick. He said all of Jerusalem,
it's just
under his plan, will be a Palestinian state, Jerusalem as the capital, Xing Israel. Period, exclamation point. And if the world does not wake up and understand that, the Islamic regime in Israel, the Arab world, they are an intent. Jerusalem is to them, forget it. The Temple Mount doesn't matter. The Knesset,
Prime Minister,
gone.
They don't even try to hide it anymore, okay? They want to establish Jerusalem as their capital, and they want this embassy in not even East Jerusalem.
They're taking all of Jerusalem. They want that to
be their embassy for their capital.
Forget the story of saying that it's East Jerusalem. That's a bunch of bull.
Like I
said,
they're
not stopping there.
The U.S. knows they need Israel's permission. They've kind of said, we're going to do it anyways. It remains to be seen. And Israel, Naftali Bennett has said that he is against the idea of reopening the consulate.
Luke, what I can almost guarantee will happen with the current state of affairs, I hope, pray to God it doesn't happen, but at a certain price, Israel will probably cave. We need to pray that Israel is strong and doesn't cave, but the U.S. is good at bargaining high chips. And this is what's going to happen now. They're going to start putting that bargain chip higher and higher and higher, forcing Israel to give in to allowing this to happen. That's what I foresee.
Josh, I think we should tell a quick story, and you guys see if you can recognize anything going on today that you might hear in this story, okay? Greek king decided he wanted to be God, right? And he decided he didn't like the fact that the Jews had one God and that their God had a covenant with them and that they had their own land. So he decided he was going to crush them. He said he basically tried to abolish their God. He abolished the Torah, abolished Judaism, abolished the practice of it, right? And he decided to overrun the land of Israel and overrun specifically Jerusalem. He even went so far as to set up a statue of a Greek god in the temple itself and defiled it by sacrificing a pig on the altar.
Yeah, Temple Mount. Remember that? Yeah.
And then you had a band of warriors,
Yeah.
Judah Maccabee and his brothers and his father. They formed a guerrilla warfare army, attacked the Greeks, and defeated him. Now, I know that 30-second overview, there's a whole lot more that happened in it than that, and then went on that. But they defeated the Greeks. They went back to Jerusalem, was totally defiled, totally overrun. The temple was completely defiled. They cleansed it. They cleaned it up. And then they wanted to light the menorah because the menorah is the symbol of the Jewish people.
Yeah.
It's the symbol of their faith. And if the menorah is burning brightly, then that means that the Judaism and the faith and the covenant of the Jewish people is alive. They could only find enough pure oil because it has to be pure for the temple, right? For one day, they decided to light it anyways, and it miraculously burned for 8 days until they could find more pure oil. And so that's why today, the holiday of Hanukkah is celebrated for 8 nights. Every night, you light another candle on the Hanukkah, which is a lot like a menorah, except it's got 9 because it's for the 8 days of Hanukkah. You light one more every single night, and you celebrate with lots of fun with fried food and donuts and all kind of stuff like that. Now, after this show that we just went through and the news of what's happening here in Israel and Jerusalem this week, can you guys see anything that's happening during the week of the festival of Hanukkah that sounds just like the story that happened over 2,000 years ago?
If you can't see it, you're blind. Go grab your glasses, get your eyes checked. You've got to see it. And here, Luke, it's encouraging because as the world comes against Israel, Israel has seen this how many times? The story of Hanukkah is only one of the Jewish stories. You got the Purim and the Jews have been attacked like crazy throughout history, even recently, right? But yet every time, God brings deliverance. The Jewish people will be in the land of Israel. They will not fail.
It's not a question. Like it is happening. It will happen.
Yeah.
The question is where the nations of the world and outside of nations, where individuals of the world will stand.
Luke, and I can also say this. A lot of people are scared to be different right now.
Yeah.
And to be different means standing with the Jewish people. Automatically, you are going to be sidelined. You're put out of even your churches or your pro-Israel event. You're going to be sidelined. You're going to be pushed out. Let me just tell you. The Maccabees were an unpopular group of people, actually. Yeah. They weren't
like the
favorite.
settlers.
You know what? I personally believe that these guys are very similar. They're filled with zealousness for the land of Israel. A Maccabee was, today you'll find them in the settlements of Israel, fighting for Israel's rights on its homeland, its ancestral homeland. That is probably the most politically incorrect statement I've ever made, and everybody can hate me for it, but I believe that. I believe that Jewish people coming back to the land is a miracle of our time. It's a Maccabean kind of miracle of the Jewish people coming back to the land of Israel and establishing their roots and their home again here.
I want to say, you guys know, we are not Israelis. We're not Jews. We're American Christians, that believe the entire Bible. But we are here in the biblical heartland. We're here with the settlers because we believe in not just the land of Israel, but we believe in the entire land of Israel and their sovereignty and the covenant that God made with Abraham. We believe, and that's why we identify so much, right, with the Maccabees and the story of Hanukkah, because no matter what the world says, and the main story, the correlation between 2,000 years ago and today is that the world was trying to erase the Jewish people and the land of Israel and completely defile it, and the Maccabees rose up and said no, threw off the oppression, and they cleansed the land of Israel, specifically the temple, and restored it and lit the menorah, and the light was shining forth. The Bible says the light will go forth from Zion. And today, the same exact things are happening, and it's just the question of, as non-Jews, non-Israelis, as Christians that believe the Bible, where are we going to stand? And we've chosen to stand with the modern-day Maccabees. And we hope you guys will stand with us too. Make sure you go download the app so you can stand with us and catch our replay of lighting the Hanukkah candles this week and celebrating with us from Israel, all the pictures and videos and things that we're putting out. So download the Israel Guys app on your favorite app store. Just search it right there. It's totally completely free, and we have tons of content there. Make sure you subscribe right here on YouTube, subscribe on all your favorite platforms, and in the meantime, tune out the fake news and tune into what is actually happening here in the land of Israel. We'll be back next week here at the Israel Guys. Hi guys, thanks so much for watching. Two quick things before you go. One, smash that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the notifications bell so you don't miss out on any more of our content. Secondly, if you want to help us produce more stories and authentic truth straight from Israel's heartland, you can do so at patreon.com/theisraelguys or at our very own website. It's theisraelguys.com. Both links are in the description below.